You've probably already heard of Persona, right? It's basically inescapable at this point. Persona is everywhere. I mean, just Joker himself, the protagonist of the fifth game, has been in a dozen gacha games, gotten his own anime, and been turned into a furry in a Sonic game. So you probably want to know what all the fuss is about, right? Well, if you're in that boat, you're fucking lying. Almost everyone knows what a Persona is at this point, and I'm sick and tired of every video I say about Persona starting with, if you've been living under a rock, Persona's part JRPG and part dating sim, where you manage your time and fuck off, I'm not doing that shit. This is my video, and I'm not going to do that. I ended up doing just that, didn't I? Fuck me. You read the title, you know what this video's about. Let's talk about Persona 3. Oh yeah, also it doesn't really matter if you don't even know what a Persona is, or if you've played all the other games in the series. Because the purpose of this video is very simple. It's to convince you to try the game by sucking its cock for 30 minutes straight. So that also includes explaining all the basic baby's first Persona game stuff, so if that sounds enjoyable, let's get to it. So let's start off with the basics, shall we? What is a Persona? Well, a Persona is... Okay, I'm kidding. Let's do that later. For now, let's talk about plot. And if you're asking yourself when I'm talking about plot, instead of gameplay in this, game, we're gonna get to that in due time. But for now, just trust me, there's a reason why I'm not talking about it now. Anyways, the game starts off with a message basically saying that time delivers us all to the same end, and that the player has 1 year to do all they can, setting the tone for what's to come, and letting you know from the beginning that your time in-game is limited, gameplay and story-wise. This theme of time and how limited and precious it is pretty much baked into every aspect of the game, from its characters, to its plot, to its imagery, and most importantly, to its gameplay. That gameplay being around time management and forming bonds with those around you with the limited time you have. And that successful marriage of gameplay and storytelling is already pretty fucking impressive, being that it's something most games don't even try to achieve. That message fades into a pretty sick anime cutscene that introduces us to 4 important characters: Yukari Takeba, Mitsuru Kirijo, Pharaohs, and our main man Minato Arisato. I mean, Makoto Yuki, Sakuya Shiomi. Anime Jesus? Fuck it, we'll just call him 3-kun for now. The cutscene also shows 3-kun on his way to his new dorm, because you see he's a transfer student and is coming to live in this dorm. So, you might be asking, what about his parents? They're fucking dead. They died in a car crash 10 years prior to the game's events. If you're shocked by this, you better get used to it because everyone has a dead parent in this game. It's kind of a thing, actually. Also, on the way to the dorm, time stops, the sky turns green, a huge tower appears, and everyone turns into coffins. So 3-kun reacts like anyone would, and is upset that his butt-plug MP3 stopped working. Just a regular Tuesday, I guess. After that, he reaches the dorm and meets the aforementioned Pharaohs, who says,
"Please sign your name there."
And 3-kun is like, "Sure, random kid in prison clothing who just teleported in front of me. I will sign this contract." And after the player chooses 3-kun's name, Pharaohs disappears into the dark, and a very distressed Yukari shows up and almost pulls a fucking gun on him. Just a regular Tuesday, I guess. Okay, so jokes aside, the characterization of 3-kun being this unaware, depressed, and generally uncaring individual is perfect for this game. And that's because, aside from the fact that it's pretty funny, it's also the perfect reflection of the type of people who would buy an anime JRPG with visual novel elements. And because of that, it connects better with the people playing and makes 3-kun's arc, which I won't spoil, hit that much harder. And of course, I'm not saying you need to be the same sad sack of a human being as 3-kun to connect with him. You can be a perfectly fine, well-adjusted adult and still enjoy his story. And that's because I'm 99% sure no matter who you are, you've had your depressed, angsty teen phase. You remember, right? That time in your life where for some reason you decided that having human relationships was just not worth it, so you just kept to yourself, wallowing in your own sadness, constantly saying stuff like, "My life sucks," and continually denying that all you really need is a real friend? Yeah, me neither. So before Yukari could fucking euthanize 3-kun, we're introduced to Mitsuru, which saves us. We're also introduced to our room, in which we sleep in, and then the next day we go to school, where you're bound to be lost for about an hour. Seriously, just go here and here, don't make the same mistakes I did. And after that, we're introduced to a few more classmates, your homeroom teacher, and it's like that for a few days until...
Uh-oh.
Turns out that thing that happened before happens every midnight, and it's called a dark
Dark
hour,
hour.
a literal extra hour in the day. And while it's happening, an ordinary person transmogrifies into a coffin and is oblivious to all that occurs. But there's a chance that if you're special and you have a thing called the potential, you can see it. But if you don't have it, you'll get fucked by beings called shadows, and then wake up after the fact with a disease called apathy syndrome, which causes people to lose their will to live and basically become zombies that don't do anything. Oh yeah, and also the people that live in 3-kun's dorm are watching him sleep with some high-tech shit because they think he has the potential. And they're doing that because they're part of a secret shadow execution organization called SEAS, which is an acronym for "You already lost, aren't you?" Don't worry, it's not that important. All you need to know is that Shadow's bad. Every midnight, shadows show up, so C's kill Shadow, and C's is looking at you taking a nap to see if you can join in. Got it? Alright, so during one of the team's breach of privacy sessions, the dorm is attacked by 2 big fucking shadows. So 3-kun and Yukari run to the rooftop, and while the rest of the team handles the first one, the second one's already on the fucking rooftop. And since Yukari is too much of a pussy to fight it, I guess I gotta do it myself.
Persona.
So after Yukari pussies out, we're given a gun. And what do we do with that gun? Shoot ourselves in the head, of course, so we can summon a manifestation of our inner psyche called a... wait for it...
Persona.
All right, good job!
Incredible! Amazing, Senpai! Do it again!
Persona.
And with a persona, we can finally kill these cunts! Okay, so how exactly do you kill shadows? Well, first you cycle over to the skill option and pick the skill you want to use. No, it's a turn-based RPG. God. Look, it's not that bad. Persona and SMT games are usually a cut above the rest when it comes to turn-based RPGs, and trust me when I say this, the later Persona franchise has some of the best games to start with in this genre, since they're all really easy, don't require that much grinding, and most importantly, they're fun. So don't dismiss the game just because it's turn-based, alright? So, how does the combat actually work? Well, it's pretty standard for the most part. You choose the options and the characters go bang bang boom. So, if you have any knowledge on the genre, you know what's up. Except for 2 mechanics, which are exclusive to the Persona series, and one which is exclusive only to this game, so let's talk about them. Mechanic 1. All-out attacks. So the all-out attack system is the simplest one. Just attack the enemies until you find their elemental weakness, or just scan them to do the same thing. So that once you do, you can exploit that weakness to deal extra damage, knock them down, and get an extra turn. And once you do that to all the enemies, well... Nah, I'm just kidding, the Persona 3 version's kinda lame. I mean, it's still satisfying, it's just no Persona 5, you know? Oh yeah, and make sure you use an attack the last enemy is weak to, and don't just use a regular one and expect it to work just because the enemy died. Seriously, I've seen so many people complain about all-out attacks being inconsistent in all the games. Well, they're not, you're just being fucking stupid. Mechanic 2, a Persona system. Think Pokemon, but with a bit more stuff to manage. Wait, it's like Pokemon? Yes. But aren't personas the manifestation of your inner psyche? Yes. Wouldn't having multiple personas make no sense then? Well, yeah, except not really, since our boy 3-kun is special in the sense that he's a wild card. Which means, unlike these losers, he can capture and summon multiple personas to use in battle. You can also fuse these personas to make stronger ones, and with the help of social links, your fused personas will become even stronger. How do you capture personas then? Well, it's very simple. It's an shuffle card game that is so incredibly easy you can only lose at it if you have the mental capacity of a 5-year-old. Look, I admit it, it's a pretty shit system, especially if you're coming from the other Persona games, since this is pretty much the worst one out of all of them. But then again, it's super hard to fuck this one up, so at least it's not going to frustrate you. But sadly, I can't say the same for the third mechanic. It's your party members. I don't even... This is such a shit mechanic, dude. Fuck off. This is the absolute worst one. You can't control your party members. Wait! Scratch that. You can control your party members, but it's through a shitty tactics menu. I know, it sucks, it really does, but this is not why I recommend this game. The combat is good, but it's not flawless. If you want to play a turn-based RPG with deep and engaging combat, just pick up a copy of Nocturne or something, because what you are here for is not the combat, alright? So with that being said, holy shit, is this mechanic bad? Like, I get it, you wanted to have the characters feel like real people. Okay, so I kinda went into a blind rage when talking about this, so we're just gonna skip ahead. I hope you don't mind. It's gonna be really quick, okay? It's not gonna be a bother at all. Just sit tight there, okay? Jesus Christ, I'm so annoying. Why the fuck are you putting yourself through this? It's not even that big of a deal. Like, yeah, sure, it limits the amount of strategies you can have in combat, but there's a mod that fixes it, the portable version of the game fixes it too, and, like, why would I even put this in a video recommending the game? What the fuck is wrong with me? Such a long rant, too. Whatever, we're back. Mind! Alright, that's enough complaining. Except not really, since the dungeon crawling sucks ass too! Okay, I'm kidding. I don't actually think Tartarus, which is the main dungeon in this game, is that bad. I mean, the dungeon crawling itself is a bit repetitive, with you just going into what are essentially the same floors laid differently with a new coat of paint over and over, with no actual design cohesion, but the actual sense of progression you get while going through Tartarus is pretty satisfying, and makes the final battle on the last floor that much more climactic. Plus, just having every side quest on the same dungeon is pretty nice, and the progression of go up a few floors, get a checkpoint, kill a boss, go up a few more floors, get a checkpoint, kill a boss, get a barrier, yay, you did it! You get the next few days until the full moon to do anything you want, is pretty satisfying once you get in the groove. And besides, combat and dungeon crawling is only like 1/3 of the gameplay, and since shadows only appear at night, what do you do during the day? Well... So, when you wake up after a long night of shadow killing, you have to go to school, of course, but after that, you are free to do whatever you want around the city, be it hanging around with your friends, going to the arcade, or buying guns from the local police station. You know, the usual stuff. And by doing all of those things, you get certain bonuses. Be it a stat increase to your equipped persona, items, a stat increase to your character, or the one you're going to do the most, social links. A social link is a very literal representation of your bond with another person. It's represented by a tarot card and its correspondent arcana, which changes from person to person. To level up a social link, you simply hang around with the person correspondent to the social link you want to level. And... that animation plays every time you level up a social link, by the way, so get used to it. That aside, this mechanic is amazing and genuinely one of the main reasons you should play not only this game, but the entire Persona franchise. And that's because every time a social link gets stronger, all the personas you have with the same arcana as the social link get an experience boost. The higher the level of the social link, the better the boost. Pair that with the fact that leveling up personas the conventional way is really fucking slow, and you have players spending most of the in-game days just leveling social links. And you think that'd be bad, but since the writing of most social links, especially in this game, are so good, it turns what would be a pretty boring mechanic into a great way to develop a fuck ton of characters and tell some truly phenomenal stories alongside gameplay. And to show you that, I'll have to talk about one of my favorite video game characters, period. That being the toaster waifu we all know and love, Aigis. Aigis is a robot created by the Kirijo group to kill shadows. She was programmed to do that and only that. But the best way to kill shadows is with a persona. And you can't have a persona if you don't have a human brain, so they put one in there and wiped all of the memories? Or she just has a mechanical one. It's not really stated which one it is. I don't know if it's purposeful or not, but whichever one it is, it doesn't really matter because the only thing that's in her mind right now is protect humans and exterminate all shadows. So when you find Aigis, she's staring at the ocean looking for the person she says she needs to stay by the side of and protect at all times. And ta-da! Turns out that person is you, and she joins the party for the rest of the entire game. And, you know, she's your standard funny robot. She says funny robot lines, she talks in a robotic tone, and of course she kills a fuck ton of shadows. But the question remains. If she's only programmed to kill shadows and protect all humans, why does she want to stay by 3-kun's side in specific? Well, towards the end of the game, in a cutscene which I'll try not to spoil, it's revealed that the reason she wants to protect 3-kun so much is because in the night 3-kun's parents died, she was fighting an extremely strong shadow. So strong, in fact, she was unable to defeat it, so instead she sealed the shadow away inside of you. Of course, stuff happens, and later on in the game, the shadow's out again. And she tries to eliminate it, only to be defeated and almost killed. But when you and the others find her, she says,
I know why I wanted to be by your side. I'm sorry. I failed. I'm sorry.
And after she's repaired and returned to the group, she says this.
Why? Why did I come back here? My mission is to protect humanity from shadows. But now I know that I can't defeat them. So then, why am I here? I'm useless. I cannot even shed a tear for you all. I'm a machine. A machine that was created to protect humans from shadows. But I can't fulfill that mission with the powers I was given. So then, what is my purpose now? Could someone please tell me?
In not being able to do the one thing she was created for, in her eyes, she lost all meaning. But with the help of the others, she realizes her own worth as a person, and not as a robot designed to do only one thing. And failing at that thing doesn't mean she's worthless. She realizes that to live is to decide your own purpose in life. And if what was chosen doesn't work out, you need to make changes, adapt, and keep going no matter what happens. And that the people closest to you will help you achieve that goal, no matter what it is you choose. And with that, she says,
I know what my purpose is. I'm a machine who is here to live. And the one who has given me this new purpose is me.
And it is from that moment on that Aigis starts to become more human. Aigis' voice becomes gradually less robotic, and close to the very end of the game, her lines stop sounding robotic at all, and she starts sounding basically human. I mean, even before the moment she returns, that change is still happening. For example, this is what she says when she's defeated by the strong shadow I mentioned before.
I am sorry. I have failed. A machine is worthless if it cannot fulfill its purpose. I'm sorry. I'm afraid.
Even during battle, her lines change from
Enemy annihilated.
to,
Did I succeed in protecting everyone?
but this transition is realized best in what has to be one of my favorite social links in the entire game, where because she decided to live and is becoming more human, she starts to question various aspects of life, from the necessity of having strong bonds and people that care and love you, to trying to understand mortality and the fact that all people eventually pass away. But all this is framed from the perspective of a robot, who can't die of natural causes. So she has to come to terms with the fact that everyone she loves will die before her. And even then, she's able to find solace in that, making it her new purpose in life to protect the ones she loves to the best of her ability, promising to never leave them behind and never wasting a single moment without them. And even though she's a robot, there's something to take from her character into her own lives. It is the fact we are mortal, and that the ones we love will pass away, that makes life so precious. And because it's so precious, we should spend every moment of it with the ones we love, for it's one of the great joys of life, and practically necessary to live a good one. It's me, I wrote that quote. It's my quote. And you know what's really nice? Aside from the fact that her story, and almost every other Social Link story, links back to one of the main themes of the game, that being time and how limited and precious it is, it also plays really well into 3-Kun's characterization I mentioned before, how he is a unaware, depressed, and generally uncaring individual that really just wants to be alone. And that goes literally against all that Aigis and the rest of the crew learn throughout the game, basically forcing him, and in turn forcing the player, to learn that shit, you know? And it hits hard. I mean, this whole game hits hard. Especially in the second half where threatens to because but what he didn't know is that did it by accident because he couldn't. So he's taking but the thing is those so what is doing is pointless, and when realizes it, it's too late. And it's so fucking sad. Spoilers aside, there's stuff like the dorm, which is basically where you return to after every day of school. And oh boy, this is the least appreciated feature this game has. Letting you have little snippets of dialogue from your party members every time something important or unimportant happens does wonders to develop them and make them feel like real, actual people. And above all other things, this is the reason I love this game. The characters feel like real people with real problems, and despite the absurd situation they find themselves in, you can still relate to their struggles. And not many games manage to do that, you know? But anyways, if this game only had incredible characters with phenomenally executed arcs, it might be one of my favorites, but it wouldn't be on my top 3. Fortunately, this game has way more going for it actually, and one of those things is that this game has some really good music. That is the track that plays when you're wandering around the city during the day, and it's really fucking catchy. But another thing that is cool about this track is that when you enter a store in Polonia Mall, a remix of it plays, and it's so funky.
I never felt like da-da-da-dum-down. I never felt like da-da-da-dum-down. But they're still with me.
But if that ain't your style, the PSP version of this game has an alternate track that plays in the female route of the game when you walk around the city, and it's also really catchy. Oh shit, did I mention there's a female route in the PSP re-release of this game? Because there is, it substitutes a few social links with brand new ones that are pretty good, and it's an overall great experience. I just don't recommend it as your first experience with the game, since it changes a few things in the plot and the results are questionable, but whatever. What matters right now is that this version has an alternate soundtrack, and the battle theme for it is so good.
Been a little while, but I'm still battling, moving fast while you just prattling. No time for me, no tangling. Hit you in the spot with no angling.
And speaking of battle themes, holy fucking shit, there's a reason the main battle theme for this game is its most popular fucking track.
Here's a wake, anger breathes out, face reality, never be charity. The enemy, your buddy covers all society. Ozone shadows all mass destruction.
Oh yeah, da-da-da-down, da-da-da-down. Baby, baby, da-da-da-down, da-da-da-down. Ooh.
did you know that the final boss theme for this game is really good? Because it's really good. Oh yeah, and a cool thing about this track is that further into it, they remixed the Velvet Room theme, which is the song that you've been hearing every time you went to fuse your personas, not only in this game, but the previous 3 and the 2 that come after. So hearing a version of it in the final battle has this air of conclusiveness, like it's the big epic conclusion to all these games. And it's so fucking sick. Is this segment getting too long? I guess there's only so many ways I can call a track good. I'm not done though, because this game's most iconic song plays before it even begins. I'm talking about the base game's opening, Burn My Dread. And like, it isn't even the fact that the song is catchy and somber that makes it so good. To me, it's the fact that the lyrics fit the game's theme so well. I mean, it talks a lot about the theme of time that I talk so much about, but it focuses mainly on this game's other theme, which goes hand in hand with time. That theme being... As I said before, this game loves to merge gameplay and storytelling, and it does that with the theme of death beautifully, while almost always being related to time in some manner. For example, when you spend too much time exploring a floor in Tartarus, literal death comes, and unless you're at the end game, you won't survive. But it's not always exclusive to gameplay. An example of it being tied to the plot is the fact that, as I said before, everyone has a dead parent in this game, and that's because everyone in the main cast has or will have an encounter with death. And that not only serves to strengthen the game's themes, but also to develop the games as characters. And seeing how each of them have dealt or will deal with a loved one's passing is fucking heartbreaking. This game is always trying to hammer home the fact that death is inevitable and always at your shoulder. And that may seem really depressing, but with that chorus... actually trying to say is to take that fear, that dread you have of running out of time and having to face death and burn it. Use it as fuel for your life, as motivation to keep going and to make every moment count. And that's not depressing at all. It's actually really uplifting. And what's really beautiful is the way this goes with Aigis' character, the robot that is effectively immortal and doesn't have to worry about death. And you'd think that make her have no qualms about wasting time, but because she found extreme value in the ones close to her, people which are actually mortal, it makes her value the time she has with them a whole lot more. And she reaches the conclusion that the inherent time limit life has is what motivates us to move forward each day. And that's a really good relationship to have with death. I mean, it's an inevitability, so you will have to acknowledge it at some point. And when that happens, you will be afraid. It's impossible not to be. But to take that fear and to make it your motivator to not waste a single moment in your life for you and those you love is really beautiful. Because you only have one life, and it's weird, scary, and no one even knows why we have it. But since you only got one, don't waste it trying to run away from death. Face it and use it as fuel to live your life to the fullest. Memento mori, remember death. Those are the first words you see in this game's opening, and they are the embodiment of its message. And hammering that message home is what the last month of this game does wonderfully. Spoiler warning, by the way, skip here if you don't want some pretty important late game stuff to get spoiled. And keep in mind, there's a metric fuck ton of plot details that are left out to make this concise and understandable, so don't be mad at me, okay? So, long story short, you and your team were put in an ultimatum by the incarnation of death itself, and their choices are face an invincible foe and inevitably die in the process, or by their own volition, forget everything. Their bonds, the lessons they learned, and almost everything else that happened this past year. And to die with blissful ignorance of the fall, the end of all mankind. And worst of all, they were tricked into causing all this by one of their own who succumbed to pure and utter nihilism. And all of this is revealed right after it's discovered that the one objective you had this entire game, the thing that you were working towards all this time, turned out to be completely and utterly pointless. And after it's all revealed to the team, they are forced to face the reality of their own death and to make that decision. And seeing these characters you spent so much time with, built a strong connection with, and that were literally your strength, to be forced to reckon with not only their fast approaching death, but to be forced to decide how they choose to die, is fucking heartbreaking. I cannot stress enough how fucking helpless and sad you feel just walking around the dorm talking to everyone, and listening to their thoughts about their own demise. Needless to say that the writing here is nothing short of impeccable. The situation you and your team find themselves in is absolutely dreadful. But what this game will never let you forget is that all dread must be burned.
I will.
Against all odds, your team one by one find the strength to face death in these beautifully written cutscenes that bring all that the character learned and all the connections they've made in their journey and uses them as motivation and reason to fight death with all their will. And just as you and your team make their final decision and you start to get ready not just for your last excursion into Tartarus, but also to spend the last days of your life with the ones you love, this song starts playing. And you might be thinking, oh, that's just great. Now they're just gonna pull a power out of their ass and save the day, just like the anime characters they are. This is death we're talking about. It's not gonna be that easy. And besides, I can assure you that the ending of this game brings together all of its themes in an ending sequence that is nothing short of fucking amazing. And that will absolutely make you cry your eyes out. And that's it. Those are most of the reasons. I mean, there's still a few more things to bring up, like how shooting yourself to summon your persona is actually a representation of the character's inner struggle to accept death, and how that loops back to the main theme of the game. But I'll let you figure the rest out for yourselves. I don't want to ruin the magic of this game for anybody, especially because this is a why you should play, not a full game analysis, so I hope I convinced you to play it. And if not, I hope I helped you appreciate this thing that I love so much just a little more, you know?
儚くたゆたう